People of Reddit who work in a casino, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids, and then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays/recitals etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overpass one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 AM rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month, then seeing them back again the next day. During my 8-hour shift, a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine, punched out at end of shift, and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days losing $15,000. We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days/nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her, but she's probably ruined her life. We also had a few regulars commit suicide and a few go to jail. It's been about 15 years, but I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that, but spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit, and when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all, and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly. They don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times. Then after a few years they are regulars that don't smile anymore. They don't laugh. They don't count their wins, just their losses, and sweat every calm point they earn, and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and their spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We're almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who'd just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some shit. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital. She's gotta have that $10 pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Mother raises all hell trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital, all over a $10 pan. I don't work in a casino, but live near Atlantic City. Seeing unattended children playing near the entrance to the casino floor, where children aren't allowed. You brought your kids to a casino where kids aren't allowed and just left them in a hallway. Worked in a casino for about 7 years, and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18 over 19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100. So I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately, he lost that money too. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in AC. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. A woman approximately mid-30s dancing her ass off on the dance floor of the nightclub and suddenly dropped dead. I watched her die. All the time a VIP booth was packed, drinks flowing, everybody picking on the guy that passed out. End of night comes and they tell us he is going to need a wheelchair. Not uncommon. Guy was dead a good hour. The deaths always bug me. Casinos get a treatment similar to airports. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises, even if they are an hour dead. The goal is to get them out as quickly as possible without freaking out the patrons. New Year's was always stressful. It was never a question if someone would die that night. It was a question of how many. A good year would be one. One year we had 4. I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a code M, medical, early one morning, around 4 or 5 am. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair. Wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him. Did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse. Immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time. Don't worry about him." Between chest compressions, I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her slot machine. She didn't miss a spin, even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever, she said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now." And went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. There were these 2 middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every day when I started my shift they were there when I finished 10 hours later. And still they're in the same clothes the next day oftentimes. They were super nice and always polite to the staff. One day they hit the jackpot and win big. I think it was either £15k or £45k. It was a good few years ago now. Everyone was overjoyed for them, except the managers obviously. Well, the managers then gave them free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab until every single penny of that money was clawed back into the casino. I wasn't a casino employee, but I was an EMT in a certain beach town on the East Coast that could be described as bargain bin Vegas. On a given shift we would probably field 3 or 4 casino calls. More in the summer. It was pretty soul crushing. Most calls were alcohol related or obvious slip and fall scams. But occasionally we would happen upon some real tragedies. Suicide attempts, OTs, rapes, assaults happened with depressing frequency. This one sticks with me the most though. One day we had a call for a woman in her 70s sitting at the slots experiencing chest pain around 2 am. She refused treatment despite being in bad shape. We pleaded and begged, and even had the on-call cardiologist talk to her on the phone. But she was on a streak and wouldn't hear it. An hour later we were back doing CPR. She died right there in front of the same slot machine, with a receipt for $7 in winnings. Super fucked. The amount of employees we had to treat for exhaustion or diabetic related emergencies due to them not having enough breaks to manage their blood sugars was also super fucked. Fuck that town. Not a casino worker, but I know of a guy who sold his car to a loan shark / pimp after losing $80,000 in 2 days. He even went to the DMV and transferred the title to a prostitute. Then when he got out of his fog, he used his spare key and found the car. He took it. He was pulled over for driving a stolen vehicle. Not sure how his court case went. Not a casino, but a charity poker room at a bowling alley where I was a dealer. Guy was pretty drunk and just so bad at poker. Kept losing the maximum buy-in, $300, and would go straight to the ATM and rebuy. With every rebuy the desperation became greater and greater. I just wanted to tell him to pack it up before he lost more, but that would have probably cost me my job. Eventually I think he must have emptied his bank account. I had never seen someone lose so much money in one night. Former poker dealer at a casino. An older gentleman started to have a heart attack at the table. I called the floor person for assistance with the call button. Paramedics are rushed in, etc. All within minutes. In this instance I'm instructed to keep the game rolling by the floor person as he whispered in my ear. 2 hands are dealt and played, and a player at the table requested the heart attack guy get moved somewhere else as it is disrupting the game. Another player asked to have his chips picked up and call for the open seat because we have a wait list. I was disgusted. Not a casino employee. My story comes from my time in the military. Slot machines are everywhere in Germany. The small post I was on had a few slot machines in a back room of the bowling alley. One of our NCOs would go every payday and blow his entire paycheck over lunch. We would know if he won or not by the mood he was in after lunch. When he won he would tell us about winning $600 after dropping $1,500 into the machine. Not a casino, but the most horrible thing I remember hearing about a girl in the army stationed in Gap. She had a newish baby and would buckle baby in the car seat and drive across the bridge to SC to gamble. It gets hot as hell in Gap, and this woman one day went to the casino, parked her car on the far side of the parking lot, just past or behind a dumpster. Other patrons remember her getting up occasionally and looking out the door, but being there pretty much the whole entire day. That evening when she drove back on base she looked in the back seat and noticed that the baby was clearly in distress. Baby had in fact been dead for some hours, was in very bad shape, eyes bulging, weird bubbles coming out of its mouth. Just damn awful. She left her infant in the car seat to bake to death in the sun while she gambled her military pay away. A guy blew his retirement and had to go back to work. He was a retired postmaster and went back as a delivery driver. Edit. I'm starting to feel my job isn't all that boring. I've got another sadder, darker story from my casino employment in here somewhere. It's not the big things. It's the little things. You see someone rocking 3 machines at 9 AM on a Tuesday? They have places they ought to be, not in this casino. Thanksgiving, Christmas, hell, even Mother's Day. Place is slammed. Go home people. Don't work in a casino. But I go to a smaller casino here in Vegas where a lot of locals go to play. Lady hits 40k on an Aquino game. After she got paid out she was walking around giving all her friends and people she chats with $100 bills. I left shortly after because I just go to buy smokes and play my change here and there, so I'm not sure if she played more that night. About a week later she was in there playing every time I went in to buy smokes, so I'm sure that money disappeared quickly. Parents used to own a small casino, 50 nice tables, $100 limits. I worked weekends in the cage. Employees were allowed to gamble once off shift, and I watched one guy, after getting off of work around 7 PM, proceed to lose his house payment, car payment, child support, maximum out his credit cards, everything by the time we closed at 6 AM. I wasn't a huge gambler before that, but seeing that first thing scared me off of taking any chances in a casino beyond casual playing. Z not a casino story. However, in NC gambling hasn't always been legal. A few years ago I was helping manage a local grocery store and we had a regular. She was always pleasant. Always got her things and left quickly until the scratch off dispensing machine was installed. Within less than a month she went from chipper old blonde lady to the strange wrinkled witch at the scratch off machine. She'd spend her entire month's social security within a few minutes, scurry to the next store to test her luck, and come back to me. It was an everyday thing that came out of nowhere. She spent her brother's prescription money and begged me to sell her a Powerball ticket because she might win him some chemo and he'd be thankful. Needless to say, that was one of my last lottery sales. I don't work at a casino, but I have family that are farmers in a rural part of my state where a casino was built on an Indian reservation. Many of my family's neighbors bet and lost their entire farms. And my great uncle and his neighbor had purchased a very expensive piece of farm equipment together that they shared that ended up being repossessed because of the neighbors gambling. My uncle was out thousands and was pissed. A couple that used to come gamble at a casino I worked at killed themselves after losing too much money. Same casino had a patron whose son came in to tell her to stop and that she couldn't keep gambling the family's money away. She would easily lose over 10,000 on a lot of days she went in. You get pretty desensitized to the plight of the gambler at your table, but the double suicide and the yelling son stuck with me. I went to a casino once, and in the washroom there was a grown man bawling his eyes out telling me he lost everything. It still haunts me how utterly destroyed this guy looked. Very sad. This was 20 years ago, and I haven't stepped foot in one since. Guy hit a jackpot for $30k. In my area, that is life-changing money. He was supposed to go see his son in a different state. He went to a different casino and lost the jackpot and then some. He didn't go see his son. He didn't go to the job that he makes 2-3k a week at. He stayed at the casino for a week and lost his job. He lost his truck that he was sleeping in. IDK, what happened to him after he was evicted for sexually harassing any woman that walked past him? Edit, it should be 2-3k a month, not week. Sorry. I worked at one in Vegas for about 6 years. Suicides. So many suicides.